Hey guys, so a few guys really liked this song, so I'm gonna be doing a breakdown of it. It's called Memories, and if you haven't heard it yet, there will be a link in the description to the SoundCloud where you can listen, and if you like it, you can download it. Anyways, I'm not gonna play through as it would take about 6 minutes, and I don't want to waste 6 minutes going through it. So we're gonna start off just going down the list here as it's set up. And something I do in basically a majority, if not all of my tracks, is I actually sort everything out. I put them into groups, sort them out, get it nice and set up, which just helps me organize and find things that I would like to change much easier. Anyways, so to start off, we're going to start off in the drums, so close these down, open this up, go to drums. Okay, so here's my drums. Like the basic drum pattern is just kicks, I think, until like there is no snare up until the drop. Okay, well, the build and then in the actual drop there's a snare, but I don't use a single snare until then. Anyways, what I got going on is just a single kick, and I got my kick. Show my browser. It's a cutter kick from Vengeance Dirty Electro Volume 1, and I've been using a lot of these kicks lately because they just work nicely. You really don't need to do much EQing to them, and you don't have to layer them that much if you don't want to. And for this track, which was a pretty quick track to make anyways, I didn't do too much. Well, yeah, I didn't do too much in that department. Anyways, I got that. For the snare, that's not what I wanted to do. Browser. Okay, this is one that I actually did go through and process it. Anyways, all I did on this though was I did an EQ, which just cuts out the low ones, boosts at about 200, then cut out some of the mid frequencies, boosts the highs again. And it has a long tail, but that's because one of the files that I used to make the snare itself already had a long tail, so I just went ahead and put it in like that. It doesn't have any actual reverb on it. This hat is from Xfer. It's just a basic open hat, but I set it to where the sustain was down and the decay was very short, to where it quickly closed off the sound. And normally it's much shorter than that. Reason it's so long though is because I put a reverb on there. Then I have an open hat, which was essentially just the same exact sound file. I just changed the decay to be longer on it. Other than that, there's a crash. No, there's not. I don't know why I have that there. Oh well. And then I just peaked all my drums at about -10 dB. That way the kick actually hits -10 exactly. The snare also hits -10. I don't think the hat does. I think the hats actually stay below -10 for the most part. I don't like my hats to be too loud. Anyways, so that's all I did. I got just quarter note kicks, more 2-bar kicks there, building up. Then got some hats going on, and then on the build it just gets faster and I start to use the snare, and then the drop is just your basic electro beat. And it starts to get a little fancy towards the last bit, and that's when it changes into the second half of the drop. But that's basically it for the majority of the actual drums. So if you were to listen to this, hold on real quick, it's not going to sound like the full drum set, because that's not all that I use. And I'm going to say this now, I use sample loops A lot of times I will cut them up and change them how I want, but this one I didn't feel like actually changing it. This is just a X4 loop, and it sounds like this. And all I did was cut out the low frequencies, and then I did a low pass filter on it at some point in the song. But anyways, I just put that straight in, layered it with the kick, just so it sounds kind of nice. I mean, it works out, and I don't think this peaks too high either. But I'm not against using these, because if you're gonna make a song, make a song. But if you want to make a certain sound out of it, just make the sound. I'm not against using loops myself, or for that matter, I guess I'm not against using too many samples. I don't like presets, but if like stuff like this certain loop, I'm not very good at making, but I knew that it fit in the song. I got a text message, and so I just went ahead and used it. And if people don't like that, oh well, it still sounds nice. And then I just did that at certain points in the song. Nothing really big happening after that. This trigger here, I took the same kick that I had in my main drum rack, put that kick into the trigger, which is used for the side chaining process. And I set it, I think I actually just turned it off. No, okay, on the ins and outs, I just sent it to sends only. But it works just as well if you were to just turn it off, because it still sends a signal, not necessarily sound. Anyways, so that's it for the drums. And then we get to the synths, my fun stuff. Jesus, how many? Okay, I used 2 Nexuses in this. So, let's just solo out the synths, start it up. Yeah, so for this, I have a pad. The pad is just a Nexus preset, and all I did was cut out the low frequencies on it, cut out some of the mid-low, and boosted a little of the mid-highs. I don't even need that 6th one on. Oh well. It's just a Nexus pad called Creamy Bubbles. I didn't do any actual filter sweeps on it. The way it sounded like it was building was because I made different notes start at different places. You probably can't see this too well, but I had just one note going for the first 4 bars, and every 2 bars after the first 4, I added another note that sounded like it was building. The next one is just my chords. Stop that, chords. I did do a filter sweep on the chords, as well as doing a side chain compression. And the way I made my chords is it's extremely basic. Did a DAF filter on it after the high pass. The high pass just cut out the lows immediately. This is literally just 2 square waves with a little pitch cutoff. Pan positioning is almost, it's between mono and full. And then this part here, the AI, that's kind of just acting as a little movement towards, like, for the chords. It makes the chords sound like they're moving. Other than that, I didn't do any ring mod, did a little phasing on the AI, and then filter modulation on the Daft. I did do a little bright noise on it, not too much, just to fill up some space. Did a little classic tube to add some distortion, give it a little more top end, and then a dimension expander. Then for the arpeggiator, this is something I like to do. Most people, you can just write out your arpeggiations, but I didn't want to do that. So instead, all I did was actually, these are the chords that I had wrote in my actual chord instrument. It's the exact same thing. The only thing that's making it sound like it's arpeggiating, though, is on this one, I have an arpeggiator set. And the arpeggiator in Ableton is a MIDI effect. You just put that in. In FL, there's a separate way to arpeggiate without having to write it out. You're gonna have to Google that. I'm not gonna show you on this one. But anyways, so I just wrote out, I put an arpeggiator in there. I set it for down up instead of just straight up or down. I put the gate at 80%, rate as that's 1/16. And that way it'll play like every note in the chord. It'll play it in an arpeggiation at 16th notes. As for the actual instrument itself, it's just another Nexus preset, single layer leads, plugin synth. I wanted to do a little plucking on it, but also I didn't turn off the reverb or delay, and so it's already very reverb when it comes out of the instrument. And then afterwards I ended up just sending it to this reverb send and the ping pong delay send just to add even more freaking space to it. I mean, this arpeggiator has a lot of space to it if you listen. Very long tail too. Anyways, did a filter sweep on that for the first few bars. Yeah, for about 16 bars, actually did a big filter sweep. Next up is the lead synth. This has got a bit of stuff on it. Anyways, so for this, let's start off with the instrument. So this is, the way I generally make my leads is with Massive. I do a basic square saw, but I just pitch it up and I put it at about this position, at about 10 o'clock. And this gives it a full enough feel to sound nice and big, or I guess just full, but enough square to cut through the mix. And I set it at a higher note than what it was set for originally, but then I put an LFO on it with a very high rate, and then detuned it with the LFO to give it a harder feel to it. It's kind of like the way that you would make a Dutch style lead. Other than that, I put a low pass on it, which I don't remember if the low pass even moved. I don't think it did. I think that's just there. It doesn't move. Oh well. Other than that though, voices, did a little pan positioning, reverb. It doesn't have any reverb on it, surprisingly. I thought it did. And then it has a little chorus to it. Outside of it, I have it EQ'd at 100 Hertz again. And I need to start turning off my buttons that I'm not using. It's kind of the exact same EQ that I did for the pad, I think. No, a little different. Oh well. Then I have a compressor on it to just kind of cut down the dynamic range. It doesn't really do much else besides that. And then just a sidechain compressor. So that's it for the synths. Now for my effects. Okay. So the way this one worked, this is just an ambient effect. Start right here. So that's not even being put through any reverb. Well, it's going through reverb send, but it doesn't have any other actual reverb on it. This is just a sample that I got from Dark Reverb. That was reversed. I just need to know what it was called. Dark... whatever. I got it from a sample pack. I think it was Mala. One second. If I can find it. Mala sounds. There it is. That's it. Anyways, that is just a big ambient sample, and it was very, very sub-heavy, so I just kind of cut out the sub-frequencies again, just so it didn't overload with the kick and later on the sub. I have a stereo expander, which is an audio effect rack I made myself, because I didn't like the utilities with thing, I just didn't like it. So I made my own audio effect rack for this. Okay, other than that though, it's just a phaser to add a little bit more movement to the ambience. Okay, this is a rise that I made in Massive, and it has the low pass 4. It's just 2 square saw waves again. Going through some reverb and dimension expander. The voicing is at 2, but it starts at mono. And whenever I move the second macro, it changes the pitch, low pass filter, the wavetable here, and the mono to full inverted. And this just gives it a more of a growing feel to it. Let me sort that out. So this is what it sounds like. My bad. Oh yeah, one more thing. It also affects the LFO5 amp and the rate, which the LFO5 is affecting the pitch as well. I set it to where they are opposite of each other, and this kind of gives it a more of a phase feel to it. And the way that these are actually being sidechained, even without a compressor on it, is I put the sidechain on the group rather than on each individual instrument. And this kind of just saves CPU. Next up, we got crash cymbals. These are actually really basic. I put them in. These are Vengeance Essential Club Sounds 3. They are just basic crash cymbals that I put in, turned warping off so they got their full length perfectly. And then this one was kind of different. Yeah, it naturally actually does this kind of cut off itself, but I messed with the fades to make it more extreme. And this just, I don't know what this does exactly. I don't know how to explain it. I just know it makes a certain sound and it sounds cool. Alright. Next up we got reverb kicks, which again are just from a Vengeance Essential Club Sounds 3. And I turn the warping off. And I didn't add any effects to these, because the effects are actually all on the group itself, which just affects the EQ8. Just cuts at 100 Hertz to cut out sub-frequencies. And then, other than that, that's just about it. I don't think I made it rise at all, it just kind of hit. Yeah. Okay. Next up is noise, and the noise is made a massive. With the second macro. Second macro affects the, one second. Okay. I'm back. Anyways, so, right. Okay, inside of Massive, I automatically high-passed it. I don't know. God, I hate coughing. I don't know exactly what frequency this is set for, but I know it's well above 100. I set the low pass and the amp to macro 2, the reverb small, just adds more space to it, and it's automatically set for 2 voices, pen position full inverted. And I think this is actually the only one on the special that I actually have sidechained. Everything else isn't. And that's just because it sounded better that way. And that's really the only way I know how to explain it. As for reverb sends, this one doesn't have any actual reverb on the channel. The crashes don't. So I sent a heavy amount to the send and to the ping pong delay. And then same with the noise. The reverb kick I just left completely dry. It just added a big impact. Next up is the drop. And the drop is very weird. 8 bar. Bingo. So this is what the drop sounds like. So yeah, that's what it sounds like, and it's really weird. Because I've never made something actually like this before. It was my first attempt at something like dirty electro. So let's see, main bass. The main bass is a really dirty one, and it doesn't sound as full without a sub, and the sub I'll get into later, but by itself, this is what it sounds like. And it sounds really, really big, but it's actually very easy to make. This is what it is. So it's just a saw wave with a band reject at the top end, with a classic tube, a little phaser, 2 voices with a little pitch cutoff, a hard clipper, and a sine shaper. And here's the thing, without all of these, this is what it sounds like. Which is really bad. The way I got it to sound like this, though, is by putting it through a lot of effects. So this is how I did it. I first put a saturator, and if you're gonna try to make something like this in FL, as far as I know, Fruity Loops does not have a saturator inside of it, so you're going to have to get a VST to do that, and I know of a good one. I think I actually have it still. Plugins, Ferric TDS. It's a really good saturator plugin, very easy to use. I would recommend it for FL users to get for saturation. After that, I put in a multiband dynamics, which you can do in FL. I know there's one that does it, and then there's Maximus, which works a lot better, but it's more for mastering rather than a single instrument. The inputs are kind of, heavy on the top. Not really too much happening on the bottom. No other effects though were changed. After that, I put a sidechain compressor. I put an amp to kind of mess around with the bass. I put a certain heavy amp. You can't really do this in FL. You're gonna have to find your own way to do it, because you don't have these amp styles in Fruity Loops that I'm aware of anyways. Then I just put a EQ8, and it's just basically a high pass at about 100 Hertz again, 86 actually, and then 4 just boosts at 5K. And then this here, this high pass high pass. After the drop, I kind of let it linger around. Where is it? As it slowly kind of cuts up, cutting out all low frequencies until it gets to about 22K. And then I'll bring it in again later on, in towards the drop, as it just kind of comes in. Anyways. And that's it for the main bass. I mean, it's really basic. It just sounds pretty cool when you put all the stuff together. Anyways, next up we got 2 different types of chords actually. So I put just a really heavy compressor on it, and all it is Vengeance, Dirty Electro, 128 BPM, Entourage chords. And this is what they sound like. That's it. Nothing else. Then I kind of duplicated it and then just turned these down an octave. No, wait, what? These are up an octave. Technically they're down an octave. Oh well. And this is what these sound like. And that's basically it. Same settings, everything. Just really compressed it. Anyways, I have this kind of white growl. What I call it. It's a growl that sounds like white noise. Anyways, I have my Heartifier on here, which is kind of the same thing. It's a compressor, saturator, multiband dynamics, but this is what the inside of it looks like. And it's all being affected by one performer and an LFO. And this LFO is kind of set weird, but it works nicely for the song because it's very big, but it sounds like it cuts while it's actually wobbling. Anyways, so this part here, the actual performer that looks like it's a sawtooth, is affecting the chrome, grain, scrapyard. I have it phased on the scrapyard, down 24. The other things, mess with the bends. I mess with the bends to really get them to sound like this, because otherwise they wouldn't sound nearly like this. Without it, it would be like this. Okay, it's kind of close. Whatever. Screw you. I get to say what I want. It's my tutorial. Breakdown. Whatever. Noise is brown noise. I put a little bit of feedback. A band reject being automated by the performer. Classic tube. Dimension expander. Little EQing just to cut out the high shelf. Voicing. 2 voices. And I have the performer modulating the mono to full inverted. After that, the Heartifier, which I made myself, which looks really nice because it just hardens a sound. Without it, it sounds like this. And this really adds a lot of bass because they're right here. It adds a lot of low end by amplifying the low ends at 120 and below. And this gives it a heavy feel even though it's really high pitched. Other than that, the saturator just messes with the volume. And that's about it. The compressor again just shuts down the dynamic range. Not a very big change, but it does make a difference. So this stab is my next one. Again, I have a Heartifier on it, and I messed with the multiband dynamics settings, and I ended up turning the saturator off. But this is what it looks like. It's just a chrome AI phase on the... Really? Okay, apparently there's no phase, it's just on. Anyways, bends, again, on the AI and chrome, got a low pass being modulated by the performer. Classic tube and some reverb, hard clipper, yada yada. After that though, it's the wobble, which sounds like this, which I really like. I don't know why. For some reason it reminds me of Knife Party's Antidote. I don't know why. But again, Heartifier, just compressor, saturator, and the saturator and compressor don't ever really change. They just sit there. The thing that changes the whole way through is the multiband dynamics, and that changes the lows, highs, and mids, and whatever. After that, though, I did put an overdrive to affect more the top end, which just really adds some amping to the high ends. And this is what it looks like. It's just some ring mod phase on one oscillator, which is a Sonic. I changed the wavetable to exactly 9 o'clock. It bends plus minus, minus plus, whatever, exactly 9 o'clock. Set the performer, which is at a triangle ratio 112 on the low pass 4. Browner tube, dimension expander. EQ just boosted the high shelf a bit. There's actually some feedback going on, but not too much. But other than that, that's just about it. Anyways, next up we got the sub, which if you don't have actual monitors, then you're not gonna be able to hear it very well. Like, if you have very good headphones that reach the sub, wow, that really gets deep. Anyways, sorry. So this is what it is. It's just a basic, normally you would have it all the way sine, but I like to add a little triangle to add more weight and warmth to it. I add a little feedback. It's just one voice that monophone glides kind of cut down a bit. Teletube, and the teletube's turned just above 9 o'clock, drives at about 12:30. And that's all I did inside of Massive. After that, I put a saturator on just to add some more grit and warmth to it with a soft clipper on. But then I EQ'd it to cut at 130. And this just makes it to where everything above that gets cut out, so I just have really warm, heavy sub-frequencies. After that, I have a limiter on, and this is something I haven't really done up until this song, which was, I kind of set a limiter. I don't know if anyone's really noticed, besides the wobble anyways. I have a limiter on every track at -9, and this kind of sets it to where they're all just about the exact same volume. And then afterwards, I put a final limiter onto the group itself, which is at -10, but the gain's turned up so that everything actually hits -10, and that just makes everything sound about the same loudness. After that, I put a compressor to kind of glue things together. I put another compressor to sidechain instead of sidechaining everything individually. And then I put a sausage fattener, which I'm going to explain now. On each of my group tracks, the very last thing I put was a sausage fattener, besides the drop. And all the sausage fattener does, it's not even set very high. This is at 2%, turn it down. And I think I set it for like 2, maybe 3% on every single one of the groups. And this, again, just glues it together. And that makes actually a kind of a big difference, not a really big one, but it does make the tracks sound more glued together. Okay, reverb sends, all these sends, anyways. I have a reverb send, and I cut the high frequencies in the reverb itself. I put a really long decay time, and also I turned the dry wet all the way up. That way the send knobs themselves act like the dry wets. Other than that, I put an EQ to cut out everything below about 500 hertz. I think I did the exact same thing, yeah. On this ping pong delay, I have it set for 100% dry wet, feedback set about 35 quarter note beat division. And then my EQ is again set to close to 500 just to cut out everything super low, because I don't want to reverb or ping pong any of the low frequencies because that just doesn't sound good for the mix. This is my New York style compressor, and all it does is compress these really low frequencies and the really high frequencies very hard. It's at -15 dB threshold, 100% dry wet. The attack and release are all the way down, but the ratio is at a 10:1. I then just set a single cut at the very middle to really make it to where these middle frequency ranges don't get affected. It's just the really low ones and really high ones. Other than that though, nothing else was done to this. As for the master channel, so there's a lot of stuff going on in here. I do have 2 separate limiters, as well as a utility and an auto filter. And most people would advise against this, but I did it because it worked out for the song. Anyways, the auto filter here cuts out everything at 26 hertz and lower, which works out good just so it doesn't get too subby, but also I frequency sweeped it Where is it? Yeah. Building up to the drops, I'll frequency sweep it up, so it kind of just cuts out all the low frequencies and it sounds like it's getting even more high pitched. And then when it comes back down, that's when you get more bass and it just sounds bigger and fuller. This utility here just turns everything down about 5 dB, nothing else. Then this limiter makes everything hit the ceiling at about -6 dB, and the gain here just kind of turns it up so everything does hit the ceiling, which these two kind of counter each other, but I did it at the spur of the moment and it worked, so could have been done better, but whatever. After that, I have a iZotope Ozone 5. And I'm not going to really explain how to do this too much, because this is just how I mastered the track. It's not like this is exactly how you have to master the track, but this is just how I did. Anyways, we'll start off with the equalizer. So I set the equalizer up as a mid-side instead of a stereo right-left or whatever. And I boosted the lows on the mid, cut the highs on it, and then did the exact opposite on the sides. On the harmonic exciter, I just kind of boosted around 2 to close to 4.5 on all of these with a retro mode, so it doesn't excite it too much. And then I turned down the mix on some of these as a more fine-tuning style of adding the amount. I then set this part here is what really makes a difference. I set the frequency at about 116, and then that way it doesn't hit anything above it a certain way that it shouldn't. I don't know how to explain that too well. It just works this way. Worked out for me anyways. Stereo imaging at 116 hertz. I put everything at a band with one. The width is at -100. So if I were to solo this, it's a very straight line. But if I were to play like these top end ones, you can see how it's kind of all over the place. And I kind of just set it up like that to you saw on the drop, like the really low frequencies, like the kick and the sub and everything were very straight, but when it got to the plucks, which were really high frequencied, it kind of spread out. And I just like doing that. It kind of adds more of an atmosphere to the song. Post equalizer, cut on the lower frequencies about 300 hertz, and then boosted towards the highs at 4.5K. Then on the maximizer, it was just really quick. I did an IRC3, which is one of the better modes for better mode for maximizing. The lower the IRC, the more it won't be as accurate or won't be as intelligent per se, because that's what it says is intelligent 1, intelligent 2, but it's more CPU friendly. IRC3 is very CPU heavy, which is okay for me because I have a very powerful computer, so I can do it. But if you don't have a very powerful computer, you're probably just going to want to do IRC1. And then that's all I did in here. I just turned the threshold way down so that it really maximized everything. And after that, I just put another limiter on the end at 0 dB, but then I boosted 0.3 to make everything really hit the ceiling. And other than that, that's about it. For each instrument anyways. Just a little something I do. These two drops here, they look different, mostly because this part's missing everything from the original synths. Because in the first drop, I like to make it to where it's just... I like to make the first drop just the drop itself. But on the second drop, I like to add more of the original synths to make it bigger and fuller. And then also on the builds, where is it? This build here and this build here. On the first build, it built up until it got to the 8th bar of the build, and then that one kind of just one kick and it stopped. And this kind of gives it a what's it called? Kind of gives it a pre-drop. While this one over here went all the way until the drop, and it sped up even more. So right here, and that's how I put the song together. And what's funny is most songs take me about 40 hours plus to actually finish. And this song here took me about, let's see, how long did it take? Oh yeah, 5 hours. So this was a very, very quick song, and if I had spent more time on it, it probably would have sounded even better. But at the time, you know, when I released this, I hadn't put anything out for 2 months, so I kind of just had to quickly throw this together, which it worked, and it sounds pretty cool. But yeah, it's not like I spent a really long time on this. This one was actually pretty fast. Something I should point out at the very end, I kind of have like everything going, but the last thing I have fading out, like all these things slowly fade out with frequency sweeps and everything, but the last thing I have fading out is the main bass, and that kind of just fades off like a high pass sweep, and it kind of just gets really almost annoyingly long, just to let you know that's actually dying away. But yeah, anyways, that's how I put the song together. I hope you liked it. Anyways, on this breakdown, I hope you enjoyed the breakdown. I'm probably going to break down my other songs as I finish them, but also I'm not going to go probably as in-depth with it because I don't want to give away too many secrets. Not that many of these were secrets, it's just the way I set things up are different. Anyways, if you enjoyed it and you, again, want to hear the full song, link to that will be in the description. And be sure to subscribe to my actual channel where the song will be going up in a while. I don't know exactly when to be going up, but it's be going up as a playthrough in Ableton Live. A live playthrough in Ableton Live of the song itself. Anyways, I will see you guys later. Thanks for watching. If you want more breakdowns and sound tutorials, leave a comment, and I will get around to doing it. So thank you, and this is, I guess, I don't know what to say. Oh well, bye.